Let's
Mr.
rock and roll.
Agyekum, welcome, welcome, Mr. Agyekum. I must say, I was so pleased when Delia Awusi said that I would be working with you to help you present the important understandings that you have to share about ensuring Black business financial success. But uh, Mr. Agyekum is the founder and managing partner of AGY Associates, Black-owned boutique CPA firm located in Brooklyn. Nana is CEO and part owner of a Black-owned psychotherapy clinic, which I find to be so interesting, providing culturally relevant and ethnically sensitive psychiatric, psychotherapeutic, and medical services. He is a certified public accountant with over 20 years of experience working with the big four accounting firms, as well as top 5 financial service companies. Prior to founding AGY, Nana was a senior director with big four accounting firms' accounting advisory practice. In this role, he led teams of accounting and finance professionals in delivering exceptional client service in areas of technical, operational, and regulatory accounting. He is a subject matter expert in relation to U.S. Small Business Administration accounting matters, and most recently, he was on the team that helped design the CARE Act parameters that we are all using in the PPP program now. He uses his expertise to help Black-owned businesses achieve financial growth, and during his leisure time, he likes to play soccer with his 2 sons. He is a CPA licensed in New York and New Jersey. He's a member of the Chartered Management Global Accounting Society of the New York State Society of CPAs, a member of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and a member of the National Association of Black Accountants. He mentors in the honors program at the Zicklin School of Business at Baruch College, which is his alma mater, and he is a native Akan speaker. So with all of that, and I'm so much more, we're so pleased and proud to represent and invite you today, Nana, to talk about our topic.
Thank you, Roxanne.
You know, we have at a crossroads in the Black business community now. We talked before today in preparation what kinds of things that we can learn from the past, and we'll cover today a broad range of questions. What are the key elements and key performance indicators that you've learned are typical for successful business? How do we manage risk? And how do we know if we've assembled a good team? So let's start with what can we learn from the past? Why do Black businesses tend to fail at a higher rate?
I'll start off saying thank you very much, Roxanne and Delia, Nancy. It's an honor to also speak, share the same platform with Honorable Hakeem Jeffries. It is a privilege as well to also be part of this platform. And as you did mention, last year has taught us a lot of things during the pandemic. You did mention that I was part of one of the big banks, and during that time, I reviewed over 6,000 or 10,000 PPP applications. It was amazing to me that out of that, less than 2% of Black businesses were approved. And the reason was very, very straightforward, that they just didn't satisfy the criteria that they needed to in terms of the checklist. That is why in the second round of the PPP, it was moved more towards your organizations like yours and BOC that had the time to actually mentor Black businesses to get them to a point where they're going to be able to qualify, to streamline their business. We all know that in order for us to achieve that sort of empowerment, we need to be financially empowered. So I'm more than happy to go over your questions that you have and talk through it in detail.
Because you are immersed and steeped in this looking at businesses as we have become at the MBDA, we have an alacrity of working with a number of businesses, and we learn from the collective, right, of seeing case studies and in actuality, things that happen that businesses do make common missteps. We talked about different sizes of business. So when we talk about the startup, Let's start there, and the emerging business. And then we talk about more mature business, and then businesses, Black-owned businesses that are doing 50, 60 million. They're not all the same problems. What are the typical problems for a startup in terms of success?
So the typical problem for startup, Roxanne, is that usually when you look as a startup owner, a single member owner, they're trying to do everything by themselves, right? So you see them trying to be an accountant, trying to be legal, trying to do marketing. And when you do that, as a business owner, instead of working on your business, you're working in your business. In that instance, what you realize that you don't have any move where you can be able to grow, you can be able to scale your business. Because as you have people coming in trying to sign up to your business, what happens is that you don't have the resources in order to handle that. That's why during the pandemic, you saw a lot of startup businesses fail just because they didn't have that foundation to be able to scale their business. When we speak about businesses that have gotten to a level where you mentioned $5 to $6 million businesses, what you're going to realize is that they have certain key people that are surrounding them, helping them make that decision along the way. One of those key people are going to be your accountant, right? It's going to be your legal, your lawyer. The reason why I mentioned that is important, just because a key decision that you're going to make is going to either determine the success of your company or the failure. As I mentioned, I have worked with over 3 organizations at bulk. I have worked with over 350 small Black-owned businesses in the last 6 months. And what I had realized was that there were fundamental lack of information, just because maybe that information was designed not to share with them. So what I did as an expert was that I was able to guide them in a way that not only were they looking back, they're also looking forward in the future in order to be able to succeed.
So then, that leads me to ask, if we're looking to characterize, I think we learn a lot from failure. And as myself, as a business owner, I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? And there's certainly something about the culture of entrepreneurship. And I come from a tradition of entrepreneurship, and from market women all the way to current now. So I have a lot behind me. I stand on as I say, we stand on the shoulders of those who come before us. And I think we all have a little bit of market in us, right? So, but what are the key elements that you see in terms of, I see with our smaller and emerging businesses, and we talked about targeting a market, is not necessarily clarifying that the business that you think is a good business may not actually be what the market is looking for. And that is a hard lesson that we see a lot of our startups, that there may be a business that they love to do, but is that something that the market is asking for? So I think that if you're looking at channel and sales, that in terms of finding and identifying a target to really generate revenue, that's one pillar is, do you have something that somebody wants to buy? The second thing we talked about was really the boring parts about business that nobody wants to, things that they have to be an expert in. I find the PPP is helping our businesses to learn what a New York State 45 is, what's a 940. What are the critical gaps do you find in business knowledge that small businesses may suffer from lack of?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Roxanne. Very important question. So the first and the most important thing for a small business is understanding, we call the KPI, your key performance indicator. And how do you realize that? How are you going to be able to realize that is that understand what your profitability is, Roxanne. Most business owners are just going by without understanding profitability. And what happened during the pandemic year was that immediately they saw that there was a negative amount of impact that was affecting their business. And they realized that their business was failing without really understanding why their business was failing, just because they were not really tracking those key performance indicators that was going to show the trajectory of their businesses. So as a small business starting up, the most important thing that you have to do is to understand, first of all, your profit and loss statement. It can be as simple as that. Am I making profit on a monthly basis? If I'm not, what things do I need to change in order to reach that profitability, right? Because there's always needs to be that buffer. Once you don't understand that point, what is going to realize is that you're going to realize that you're working 60 hours. I've spoken to business owners that are working 60 to 70 hours, yet they're making losses, and they didn't even realize they were making losses till they actually understood how to track that profitability. So as you're speaking about it, one of the key factors is understanding the financial health of your company. And I always make it to, related to how I'm going to the doctor. So if you have a symptoms where you have a headache, right, people can go over the counter and they keep on taking medication.
We talked
Every
about
week,
that.
you're going to keep on taking that medication, but what
Right.
you don't realize is there may be a more serious sickness, which is caused the underlying symptoms. And that is what you have to do as a business owner. You need to understand your financial health, that eventually you need to go to an expert who's going to be able to properly diagnose what difficulty that your business is going through. We've made, an organization like yours, Roxanne, can offer 30 minutes free consultation in bulk with a CPA, or they can offer with a financial consultant. And that 30 minutes, I was able to save a lot of Black businesses from going into bankruptcy, just because they were getting a lot of wrong advice from a lot of places. So it's important that you reach out.
It's good to talk about that foundation, understanding the key performance indicators, what the profit and loss is, and collection of your invoices and billing. Often the smaller business we talked about is a one-man band. And so you're so busy delivering the service that you provide in your subject matter, whatever you're expert at doing, that you fail to understand that, it's business is about the money, right? And how to manage it, how to project what those revenues will be, how to track whether or not you are making enough. And often small businesses don't count the owner's labor. What happens if you are not able to be there? How much does it cost to pay somebody to do everything that you do? And these are these indicators that tell you whether or not you have a successful and a sustainable enterprise. So now we talk about scaling. Do most businesses don't necessarily understand that scaling means being able to increase the amount of business that you're actually able to do without using more input, more resources? So what is important about scalability for the startup business?
The most important aspect of it, Roxanne, is having the right team behind you. And having the right team behind you doesn't mean that hiring people as a startup. What you can do is that, I've had clients where they've asked me that, Mr. Nana, I just need an accountant to look at my books on a quarterly basis. You have a team. So I become part of that team. There are a lot of teams out there, like a marketing team, CPA team, a legal team, that do that on a wholesale basis that you can partner with and pay a very small amount of retainer, which is going to be anywhere from $50 to $1,000, depending on what your budget is. And most of them, when they come to your organization and they come to work, it is free. So immediately what you have is that although you are a single member working on your business, you have a team behind you that you can consult, right, in case you start having that scalability. Because if you don't have the necessary infrastructure around you and a solid foundation, you're not going to be able to scale up. And then you're going to realize that you're going to work in the same business and you're going to be the same person working these hours, but you don't see any potential growth for your company.
So we talked about, small businesses trying to be able to embrace technology as a way to build a good foundation of scale. And can you speak a little bit about, Nana, implementing technological innovation in order to be able to put the small business in a position to scale?
Yeah, so first of all, it depends on what industry that you're in. But the most important thing is that you need to be able to build a platform that is going to be able to encompass all your clientele. So there are a lot of the platforms that are around. You're going to realize that a lot of businesses probably are using Microsoft 365, which has a lot of functionalities in there that you're going to be able to build your company on. There are other programs out there. And I think the most important thing, Roxanne, as you mentioned, is that you need to be able to reach out to organizations that are actually very experienced and skilled in that part to build that necessary platform. Once you build that platform becomes part of your company where you actually always getting the ability to be able to have a solid infrastructure in terms of technology-wise to be able to go and scale up. If you're not able to do that, scalability, you're going to realize that you're going to hinder your growth. Where as a company, a single member LLC, you're going to be able to do that for the last 5 years without seeing any profits in that company.
How important is it? We talked about, managing risk.
Yeah.
And these are the elements of business that are the same irrespective of whatever business you have, right? There's certain issues with regard to meeting regulatory requirements.
Yeah.
Can we touch on what are the differences or what are the important elements of compliance that many small businesses may overlook, as well as the larger enterprises that you work with?
Yeah, so the most important thing for a small business is going to be the tax compliance. That's first and foremost. Anytime that, and when does it start? Taxes start from when you're setting up your company to when you're executing, depending on the structure that you set up. I've had people that have come to me with a common question about, do I set up an LLC or do I set up an S Corp? The thing about setting up an S Corp is that by law, as an owner, you're also supposed to be an employee of your company and pay yourself a reasonable salary. And how does that trigger? It triggers you filing quarterly taxes. People's company have been shut down because they set up as an S Corp and they never went ahead to actually put themselves as an employee, or they never went ahead to file those quarterly taxes. So I always say that depending on what your business is doing, you need to decide what your legal structure is going to be. That's the first starting point. Once you understand that and you make sure that you keep yourself out of that legal complication, then you're going to have a peace of mind to work as an entrepreneur.
And so it is important to have, these resources were often free,
Yes.
especially with the BACA network and small business counseling that is offered by the City of New York, that there are a lot of classes, especially in the virtual format now, where we are seeing you can get solid advice and in how to set up the company in the first place, which will serve you well in future. Understanding the mechanisms of actual small business, the regulatory and compliance is a critical part of any business. I don't care if you're selling candy bars or you're selling pillows or you're selling complex architectural and engineering consulting services. There are certain requirements that the state of New York and corporations and business and you will need to have these documents and an understanding of them, and it's very powerful when you do. I find the PPP some of the most powerful experiences for me in working with our clients in applying for the PPP program is this level of comfort that comes now, understanding these elements of their tax return, being able to read their tax returns, understanding how these forms all work together a little bit better. Not saying that they're at this point an expert on the New York State 45 filing or the 941s, but at least feeling like a less fear factor related to these. And there is a certain level of fear when it comes to taxes. So let's talk about that. We see a number of small businesses that will fail, either because of undercapitalized, and you become undercapitalized because you can't apply for capital. You can't apply for capital because you don't have your business paperwork in order. So it kind of like it's a well-worn track. Can you talk about what point should a small business consider tax consultants and advisors, what that difference between a tax consultant and advisor, online, just doing the taxes online, going to a HR block, or identifying a consultant and an advisor? What is the difference?
Great question, Roxanne. So a consultant is somebody who comes in to perform a specific tax that you've identified for them, right? So you go there and say, this is what I have to do, and they come in and do that. An advisor is somebody who looks at it holistically and guides you through the complicated process for your company. What I realized within the PPP during 2019, if you had thought as anything of COVID, was that most people, first of all, most businesses who are either sole prop thought that they needed to have employees in order to qualify for the PPP, and that was absolutely not accurate. So what an advisor is going to do is make you understand what you need to do, what criteria that you need to fit in order to qualify for some of these programs. And you said Honorable Hakeem Jeffries spoke about all these other programs that are out there that Black businesses can be able to take advantage of. But in order for you to do that, you need to be able to satisfy the basic requirements. And one basic requirement, for instance, was for the PPP. They required you to bring in a 2019 Schedule C, which basically is a business income and expenses of your company. And what they checked was, they checked line 31. I looked at over 50,000 applications when I was within the big banks. And once they checked line 31, which is your net income, and it was negative, you're automatically disqualified. A lot of small businesses, especially Black-owned businesses, were disqualified because based on that factor. So immediately, there are all these programs out there, but you're not trying very hard to understand how to qualify. So that's the first thing that we need to understand, that in order to qualify for these programs, you need to understand that you need to start paying some taxes. You need to understand that people want to see the profitability of your company, which goes from understanding your profit and loss statements, understanding your balance sheet, understanding the health of your company, and making sure that those are programs that you can qualify for. And those are programs that, immediately that you qualify for is going to help your business actually succeed. So to your point, the Black businesses that I realized that have succeeded are Black businesses that had potential or significant cash flows that were able to sustain the impact that this COVID had on those Black businesses. And the ones that were not able to survive were ones that didn't even understand how to really track their KPI, to no fault of theirs, but it had to take some advisor who was going to be able to diagnose that issue for you.
And it's such an important point. We really thank you so much for driving it home, that there are resources here in the business community that, like the Business Outreach Center Network, that has untold resources for small businesses at every level. And the expertise that is within BAC, I mean, hundreds of years of expertise collectively. And so we appreciate so much. We don't know everything either. But what we do know is that there are resources out there, and we'll tell you whether or not this is something that you should pay for, and no matter, the business intelligence is one of the things that we need to increase, no matter what point in business we're at. We often find, as Nancy will always say, that the most successful businesses in our center are the ones who come and work with us all the time. And we notice that these are the larger corporations and minority-owned businesses. They realize the value. So, and again, there's a lot of, we have a lot of hangups with regard to finances, and there's some cultural things that we have to navigate with respect to sharing information. I myself come from a West Indian tradition where maybe, the kids are not really supposed to ask about the family business on certain levels. So there are certain cultural things that we have been working with in the MBDA community to work with that second generation, because we know that in order to have sustainability for a business, we want to be able to share that knowledge across the generations. We thank you so much, Mr. Agyekum, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us if your business needs a level of expertise that this CPA can provide. We certainly want you to look out for other services and opportunities for workshops that we're offering. Thank you so much, Delia. Thank you so much, Nana.
Thank you so much, Roxanne, Delia, Nancy, and the entire BOC, LDCENY network, MBDA network, for having me.